Welcome back F11 members to part 2 of the fundamentals of post-production video tutorials for issue 42, July 2015. Okay, let's go back to Iceland and to the Stokksnes Peninsula, and I want to talk through the processing of this particular picture here, which was a particularly interesting afternoon, quite steely flat light, but just a brilliant location. And I want to demonstrate to you the use of Lightroom's Grad Filter, and a new development actually in the latest version of Lightroom CC that makes the Grad Filter an even more versatile and useful tool. As I've said before, I think the Grad Filter tool in Lightroom is far better than the one in Photoshop, and is a really useful thing to get your head around. So let's progress. Now, when I shot this picture, I wanted to give as much exposure as I could without losing highlight detail here in those distant snow-capped mountains. If I hover my cursor over that area, up here you'll see displayed the exposure values in each color channel, and although they're very high in the 90s, they are indicating that I do have detail there. But I also wanted as much detail down here in the black sand dunes as possible. I used a soft Grad filter to hold on to as much detail as I could in the sky, and in fact nothing has burnt out in the sky, which is great. But at the same time, if I look at the histogram, you can see there's no clipping of shadows or highlights. But I'd actually like just a bit more tone, a bit more depth in that sky. There's not much detail there, but at the same time I want to darken it down a touch. But at the same time I don't really want to darken down these white, snowy mountains as well. So let me just show you something. Let's start by doing what we would to the image in any normal circumstance, and I'm just going to adjust the black point. We can see here, there, that the darkest tone in the image is not a pure black, and if I just move the black, hold down the Alt slider, move the black slider to the left until I start to see clipping of the blacks in the shadows, and that has done a fair bit to improve the overall contrast of the image. I'm now going to do the same with the whites. I know there's not going to be much scope for movement here, but just a touch, +7. Okay, and I'm now going to ignore the bottom half of the picture. Ignore the sand dunes for now, because I'm going to come back and I'm going to use the Grad tool actually to give them the sort of density and contrast I want. I'm just looking really at the water, the mountains and the sky here now. So first thing I want to do is just darken down the whole of the image a touch to about there, and I'm going to pull back on the highlights. Excuse me, there's a helicopter flying overhead. I don't know if you can hear that. Probably be from the Royal Naval Air Station at Yeovilton. Right, as you can see, if I move the highlights back, it brings in detail on these snowy mountains and also here on the beach, and that's gone a far way to improving the impact of the picture. But I just want to have a bit more grad on the sky, so I'm going to hold down the Grad filter, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key, which means my grad will be applied in a level fashion, and I can fine tune where I want the grad, how I want it to, how soft I want it to be. I want it to be pretty soft. And actually, can you see down here I've ticked this box which says show selected mask overlay, and I'm just going to unclick that now, and now just give the kind of exposure that I want to the sky. Just a touch of depth there, but I think it helps to hold the image in. But the trouble is that although I want to darken down the sky, I don't really want to darken down the mountains. Now in Lightroom we have a wonderful new feature that I think is so useful. I'm just going to click back on show selected mask overlay. Now if I come over here, still in the Grad tool palette, and click on this, it says brush. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I can add to the overlay, but I can also detract from it. And if I hold down Alt here, and you can see I'm just going to, there is my brush, and actually I need a bigger brush, so using the square bracket key, excuse that pinging, I don't know why that's happening, but okay, now, and I can actually now paint in here like this, removing that mask, so the net effect being that the mountains will not be darkened down, only the sky will. Now I have to be careful of the halo effect, the dreaded halo effect appearing around the mountains, but I'm just going to take all of that mask out here. Now if I just click off the show selected mask overlay, and it's done a pretty good job, hasn't it? There's just a slight effect of a halo around the mountain. So now, still in brush, and I'm going to go down to a much smaller brush size here, I can now paint in just around the edge there to make sure that unsightly halo is not there. And using this we can really refine the mask and the effect of the Grad so that it's affecting just the sky. Can you see what I'm doing? I'm now adding to the mask overlay. So that it's only affecting the mountains. Really useful tool. And what I can do also is I'm going to come down on the size again. Sorry about this, that horrible sound. Just come down on my brush size, and now I'm just going to paint in here, add to the mask here, just to bring in those white mountains there. And again, have to be careful not to get a horrible halo effect. But I think that's really been quite something, really quite useful. I can also use it to put in a touch of density here on the water. And at that stage I look at the picture and I think, yeah, I'm quite happy with what that's done. Now if I click on done there, that's applied. Now I'm going to turn my attention to the bottom half of the picture, and I'm going to use a Grad again here, moving it in from the bottom this time, and I want to just move it so that it's really just coming into effect on the sand dunes in the bottom there. And now I'm going to go and just add a bit of contrast into that part of the image there. and just a bit of well, no, not really. Oh, just a bit of contrast, that's all. Now click on done. Now if I come down here, you see here these two boxes here, cycles between before and after views, and on the left we have where I started with the picture, and on the right where I've got to, and I am very pleased with that. Normally these kind of local adjustments would be done far better in Photoshop, but I think this development with the Grad tool and the ability to refine the mask by adding or subtracting from it makes it even more versatile and even more useful. Okay, we'll be doing more with that in future editions of these video tutorials, and remember, do feel free to send us in your suggestions of what you'd like to see me do. But we'll see you next month. Okay, thank you.